So you've just finished a game of Civilization 6. You had a good time, you won your game, and you're thinking it's about time to move on to a higher difficulty. Maybe you've owned it for a while, maybe you've owned it for a little bit, maybe you've played 2 games, maybe you've played 200, but you're playing on Prince and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to move to that next level. I want to be a superstar Civ player. So what do? You obviously go to youtube.com and search up VanBradley or Civ tips, or somehow you ended up here. However you did that to end up here, that's a good start. Well done. So you've done that, and then you watch some of our tutorials, you watch some of our Let's Plays, and you're like, hey, you know what? This guy hasn't done it to this jabroni has not done a tutorial specifically addressing how to move up in the difficulties of Civ 6. And that makes you mad, and you should be mad because I can't believe that I didn't think of this. So you go to the comments and you type there, you're like, hey, VB, VanBradley, you schmuck, can you please do this video? That would obviously make sense for your channel. And I go, yes, of course. So here we are with a 2-part series on how to progress in the difficulties of Civilization 6. Tip number 1, subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm just kidding, but you should. You should click that subscribe button. It'll help you out, I promise. Even if you don't need to get better at Civ 6, if you just want like fun videos to watch sometimes, that's a good button to click. Let's move on. Before we start, we have 3 ground rules we need to cover. The first ground rule is you cannot cheat time. There is no cheating time. There is no tutorial, no guide, nothing you can do to cheat time in Civilization 6. If you would truly like to play consistently on deity at a high level and win all of your games, you are going to need to put a lot of hours into Civ, and there's nothing I can do or anyone else can do to cheat time in that way. But what I can do and what other Civ creators do all the time is give you the best tips, advice, things that we learned along the way to help you speed that up a little bit. Basically, just don't expect to watch a video like this and then go and smash deity right away. That's not really how it works, right? We're going to give you tips, we're going to give you tricks, we're going to give you practical things that you can do and focus on, but like anything else, it just takes time and repetition to really get right. And with a whole bunch of Civ patches coming out and new content, these videos don't age too well, so I'm going to try and stick to broad tips today. That brings me to part 2 of the ground rules. We're going to do this as a 2-part series. The first part today is going to focus on really broad things that apply to every single Civ game. Just some broad approaches you can take to your games of Civ to make sure that you are comfortably moving up in the difficulties as you go along. The next video, which will come out next week, will focus on more in-game, like specific things. For instance, like, did you know that the more science techs you have in your tech tree, the higher production you get from a chop? So you might want to research sailing in 1 turn or something else in 1 turn just to make the chop worth more if you're going to chop out a wonder late in the game or something like that. There are a bunch of little tips that we can talk about, but we'll talk about those in another video next week. Today we're going to focus on more broad things that you should do when you approach your games of Civ to help win on higher difficulties. The final ground rule is pretty simple. It's that Civ doesn't fundamentally change as you increase the difficulties. So a lot of the tips, while different, they obviously have to be different, but a lot of the tips sound familiar, right? We're all playing within the same confine. I don't know how to... when I do this, like on my screen, it's all reversed and inverted. So I just tried to make a box there. I don't know. We all work within the same confines of civilization, right? So the tips aren't going to come out of the clouds from nowhere and be something totally out of left field. All of the things we're going to talk about, all of the tips I'm going to give you, they already exist in the game. They're not hidden anywhere. They just take time and repetition and practice to figure out. So I'm going to help speed up that process a little bit, but don't expect like any mind-blowing secret setting, get rich quick thing that you didn't know about, right? We're all talking about the same game here. It's just how you navigate the game that changes. The first and most helpful tip I have for you is to go into your games with a plan. You need to make some sort of plan as you head into your Civ games. For instance, let's talk about this game we just won on YouTube, something you guys probably just watched, with Vietnam. And I'll talk about what my plan looked like going into it, because this is something that's very, very important to make sure you're in the right headspace to try and bump up the difficulties a little bit. All right, so we chose Vietnam. Where do we want to go from there? Well, Vietnam immediately, when I looked at her abilities and I saw, hey, she plants woods early, she's pretty defensive, she's pretty hard to take over. What does that kind of lean towards? I thought a culture victory, right? So now that I decided that I want to go for a culture victory, how do I plan that out? What does that look like as I'm playing this game? Well, because Monopolies mode is enabled, and I know that Monopolies are going to give me an absolute just bogus amount of tourism, in this case, 490% tourism, I know I want to focus on that, so I have a plan. I'm going to settle my cities and get as many luxury resources as possible. What did that look like in the game? Well, I settled my cities and realized I didn't have enough luxury resources. So, because that was my plan, that was how I was planning on winning this game, I thought, well, I need to find more. So what did I do? I found Tamar, who was a really easy target, and I took over her cities. She had 2 spices and silk and more silk and a whole bunch of luxury resources that I wanted because that was my plan to victory and that was my pathway. So using that plan, I adapted my strategy a bit to stay focused on what I'd already wanted to do from turn 1, which was gather luxury resources. Another thing we planned was, hey, we get to chop woods early in this game, or plant woods early in this game. Planting woods is going to give us higher appeal. It's going to make the preserved districts more useful. It's going to give us more national parks. It's going to give us woods on flatland tiles that wouldn't otherwise have production. So what did we do leading up to that? We know that we are going to get the ability to chop woods. I can't even remember exactly where it is. Where is it? Let's find out. It's at Medieval Fairs, so we knew in this game, as I was recording it, that, hey, I am going to be able to plant woods at Medieval Fairs. So how did I prepare for that? We spent the turns from Code of Laws up to Medieval Fairs chopping all the rainforest. If you rewatch this series on YouTube, we chopped all the rainforest in this area before we could plant the woods, because that was what we planned for. We made a plan to plant woods to win the game. That was where our focus was, and so that is how we adapted our strategy. Normally, I wouldn't just run around with builders to chop rainforest all the time early in the game, but because rainforest gives negative appeal, we wanted high appeal for preserved districts. We wanted all these tiles ready to go so we could plant woods the second we hit Medieval Fairs. We went and chopped all the rainforest. Not something I would do every game, but something that made a lot of sense considering the plan I had created. And then you have other ways you can plan your game as well, right? You can plan your districts like we have done here. We pin our districts out. If you guys aren't sure where the pins are, you just go to map tags here, click add tack, put it on a tile, and you can add a tack for anything you like. Plan your districts out. It's a really good way to make sure your districts are all good, and it gives you a way to focus on them as you're building them. You can plan where you're going to go in the culture tree. As you can see here, we focused heavily on going straight for, where were we? We went straight for Medieval Fairs, and then we came up, we went straight for conservation, and then we went straight for democracy. We skipped capitalism because we don't need capitalism. It's not part of our plan. We need democracy, and we don't need capitalism, so we went for democracy first, and now we're still skipping capitalism. We still don't need that, but we do need cultural heritage. That's part of our plan, so we're going to head straight up here for that. Now, obviously, as you learn more about the game and as you play more Civ, you'll be able to make better and better plans. But what a plan does is it gives you kind of a script to follow. I know I want to achieve X. How do I do that? Going into the game, I know I want Void Singers. How do I do that? Oh, I clear goody huts. Well, how am I going to clear goody huts? I need to build scouts earlier, right? So if you have a plan, if you have a place in mind you are trying to go, you can work backwards from there to know what all the steps will be to get there. For instance, I go on a map and I see a +5 campus, right? Let's pretend we're not doing a culture victory. This is the +1, +2, +3, +4 campus in Neon Embers here, and it's ready to go. Well, how do I get that campus? Well, the first thing I've got to do is go, where are campuses? All right, so campuses are right here in writing. How do I boost writing? How do I get those quicker? Oh, I meet another civilization. Well, how am I going to meet another civ right away? Well, I'm going to send my units out to find one. And so you can work backwards from there. As long as you know where you're trying to go and you work backwards, you kind of get a better sense for the steps you're going to need to take to get there. Tip number 2, Set up the game for success. Now, this means a different thing to different people. Everyone has their own tolerance about what kind of setup is fair and what kind of setup is cheating and what kind of whatever is whatever. This is a single player game. You are having this to have fun for you. So however you want to set up your game, you do it that way. Don't let anyone else tell you that you're not playing Civ correctly. As long as you're having fun, you're doing it correctly. So let's talk about how to set up your game for success. I like to think about setting up the game like renting a car to go on vacation, right? You don't need to rent a luxury car to go on a road trip. You don't need a Lamborghini or anything, but you do need a car with a seatbelt and preferably like a heater or gas or whatever you need. You need like the basic parts of a car, and that's what this game setup allows you to do. You have to remember, as you go up in difficulty, the AI gets more and more advantages over you. So where you can find your own little advantage is actually in the game setup menu. Let's say I want to take a crack at playing Canada. I want to play Canada. I want to play Canada on Emperor difficulty. I normally play on Prince. So you select Canada. You're good to go. Now, again, you have to remember, everyone has their own different way of doing this where they feel like it's fair, right? So if you don't feel like selecting your own city-states is fair, then don't. If you feel like selecting your own city-states is fair game, then select your own city-states. I do it all the time. However you feel you want to do this, just be comfortable with that and have fun. So you're setting up your game with Canada, and you know that Canada is good in the tundra, right? He has unique abilities that help in the tundra. Well, what are you immediately going to do? You might want to go to the temperature here and pick cold. That's going to be really, really helpful. If you know, because you've made a plan, remember, you've already made a plan, right? You know you're probably going to want to go for a culture victory as Canada. Well, how are we going to do that? If you go into your city-states, right, you might want to untick some of the non-culture ones, or you can select none and start ticking some of the culture ones. You don't need to add 6 out of 6 city-states or culture city-states, but you can go in here and make sure that your game is going to have at least 1 or 2 culture city-states so that you don't play 3 hours into your game and find out there are none. If you're playing Herald, you might want to go to your map type. You know Herald is a good naval civ who has early naval pillaging abilities. How are you going to make the best use of those? Well, it's not going to be on a continents map or a Pangaea map. You want an archipelago map because that's A, what makes it more fun to play Herald, but also you're setting up the map to have success as the civ you're playing. The reverse example is someone like Shaka. You're going in knowing you're going to want to just smash everyone in a domination game. So you don't want a lot of ocean, right? What you want is a Pangaea map for Shaka. The reason why you want a Pangaea map is it allows you to go domination without having to research any of the naval techs. You're already behind because you've upped the difficulty. The last thing you need to do is get farther behind by having to research shipbuilding right away and not going into your Akondas and not going into your Impies and not going into the other things you're hoping to do to win the game. So I hope this was a good example, just very quickly, about how there's different ways to set up the game before you even get going for a little bit of success. I would also add in the setting yourself up for success category, finding a good start in the game. A lot of people will come and complain like, hey, if you keep re-rolling, isn't that cheating? I would like to take you back to the buying a car to go on a road trip. You don't need to keep re-rolling until you have your Lamborghini. But if you roll the start where your car that you're about to go on the road trip with doesn't have a seatbelt, then you need to re-roll that. Trying to go on a road trip with a car that doesn't work isn't very fun. It's not very safe. You're not going to, A, you're not going to be successful, but B, you're not going to have fun. And this is meant to be Civ is meant to be a fun experience, right? And the game is easier and more fun if you have a good start. And I re-roll all the time. A lot of other streamers and YouTubers re-roll all the time. Some people don't, and that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with is what you're comfortable with. But I would include in setting yourself up for success, it doesn't need to be the most banging start ever, but re-roll until you get something you can work with, right? Because you don't want to get 300 turns into a game before you realize that, hey, I would have had so much more fun if I just re-rolled for 5 minutes at the beginning and got a semi-decent start. Tip number 3 is more of a mental one, but it is something you will have to get used to if you want to be successful on higher difficulties in Civilization 6, and that is playing from behind. You need to get really, really comfortable playing from behind and having to catch up in your games. It's really easy to see this score sheet at the top here at turn 61 and see the 15 science and go, wow, Tamar, literally everyone in this game has higher science than me. Everyone but Tamar in this game has higher culture culture than me. How am I ever going to win this? This is a deity game that we won at turn 180. So it's just about being comfortable, knowing that just because you are behind does not mean you are doing poorly, and it's a really hard mental thing to bridge. Now, being behind has other consequences you might have to get used to. If you just hop into a deity game, one of the first things you're going to notice is the AI just wants to murder you right away. Well, how do you figure that out? As you can see in this game right now, I'm just getting to horseback riding at turn 61. Right? In most deity games, you're just going to want to go animal husbandry into archery so you can defend yourself easier. It doesn't matter what else you want to do. You're playing from behind, so the AI can just come and kill you, so you need to adapt your strategy to defend that. Additionally, playing from behind might mean that some of your early wonders that you've been relying on are just unavailable right now. On Deity, you can never really get Pyramids, Temple of Artemis, and Oracle like you can on Prince. So if you want Pyramids, you're going to have to rush here and grab them, but know that it comes at the cost maybe, not all the time, but maybe of Temple of Artemis. Right? Or of Oracle, because the AI are already ahead of you and they are already building those wonders by the time you even get to them. Now, at some point, you're going to catch up and things are going to get a little more even and you'll be able to go for the wonders you want to go for later in the game. It's also good, just as a little side tip, is to start recognizing the patterns. This is somewhere where, again, you can't really cheat time. You just have to play the game. But for instance, I know, because I played loads of deity games, that the AI never really prioritizes Petra. So I know that at turn 61, if I want to come settle a Petra city up here, I can probably still do that. It's only something you'll know and get used to as you play the game more, but because I'm playing from behind, I need to know which wonders I can get, which wonders I can't, and just be comfortable giving up what you can't get, because it's going to happen. So just know, get used to playing from behind. We won this game at turn 180, one of our quickest YouTube victories ever on Deity, and at turn 61, there's only 119 turns left in this game, and we are dreadfully behind already. Tip number 4 may or may not be the most important one. I don't actually know how to order these, but it's the one I struggle with the most, and arguably one of the best things you can do as you move up the difficulties in Civilization 6. As you move up in the difficulties, you are going to need to just take your time each turn. Civilization isn't a race. If you want to play the game quicker, you can go up to quick speed or something like that, but it doesn't mean that you can just spam through your turns and do everything very quickly. There are so many things that you can check each turn to make sure that you are doing well. For instance, every single time you complete something, a civic in the culture tree, you should check, are these policy cards, are the policy cards I have in working for me? The amount of times me and you and everyone else just skips by the policy cards by accident, or because they didn't stop to see, it doesn't always prompt you to change them, so maybe you didn't see that they were changeable this turn, and you missed putting a card in. If you extrapolate that over the course of a whole game, if you miss 2 or 3 chances to switch your cards around to something more helpful, something that'll help you now, that might shave 10-20 turns off your game and might be the difference between winning and losing on a higher difficulty. Head in here and check your great people. Are there any new great people that you want? If a great engineer comes out and it's like 490 wonder production and you really want that to build the Ruhr Valley or something, right? But you're way behind, you know, oh, I've got to go right now and put great engineer projects in my cities to get that great person. If you don't check this every once in a while, you might not have noticed that great engineer was there at all because you were racing through your turns. City-states, another big one. The amount of times I have Suzed Mohenjo-Daro, settled all my cities off freshwater, and then lost the Mohenjo-Daro Suze and didn't even realize until the next time I could put envoys in. So just click up here every once in a while, not just when you're putting envoys in. Just click in and see, hey, I was suzerain with Geneva, and now I'm not. And it's good to know that because Geneva's ability might be something you're relying on. Same with governors. Are the governors in my cities in the correct places? I know that I want to chop out something in Kahia here in 5 turns. Well, it takes 5 turns to move Magnus. So if you're checking in with your governors every once in a while, it'll prompt you like, hey, I'm staring at Magnus, and he's in a city that I'm not chopping anything out of. So maybe I'll move him to a city where I might later. And just these little check-ins, take your time with each turn is mainly what I'm trying to say. Make sure you're checking all of the things. Click your Great Works thing every once in a while. Can I theme anything here? Nope. Okay, but you checked. Because if you don't check, it won't prompt you. Your brain won't remember that you can theme something. So just click some of this stuff every once in a while. Like, can I do anything here? Nope. We're good. Click your governors. Do I want to move anything around? Nope, we're good. Click your city-states. Am I still Sue'd with all the city-states I want to be Sue'd of? Yes. And that type of thing is very, very helpful. Just quickly, not every turn, obviously, the game would take forever, but just things you should keep an eye on. Look up here, go, am I still allied with everyone? Yep, my friendship didn't run out? Good. And those types of things will be very helpful in making sure that you're making the most out of each and every turn instead of just skipping by important things that you might miss. And finally, tip number 5 has nothing to do with being in the game Civilization 6 at all. It has all to do with what you are doing right now. How I learned how to play on higher difficulties was to join a community. When I first started streaming, I was playing Civilization on King difficulty and having trouble. Now I can comfortably play it on Deity and win the vast majority of my games. That didn't just happen from playing Civ. It happened from watching videos like this. It happened from going into people's Discords. The first community I joined was the Game Mechanic. He's right here. I don't want to click on anyone else's Discord just in case there are things there that they don't want people to see unless they're in the Discord. I'm just being extra careful, right? But he has a Discord server. So I YouTube the Game Mechanic. I see that he has a Discord. I hop into his Discord. As you hop into other people's Discords and be part of that community, you'll notice that mine and everyone else's Discord has a channel like this, Civilization Chat. In this chat, everyone from our community chats about Civilization. So if you have any questions or you're playing a game, someone posted in here about their fantastic Temple of Artemis. That's awesome. That's the kind of conversation we would love to have in this Discord. So what you can do is you can join a community like this and you can play along with us. You can communicate with us and we can help you play Civ while you're playing. Like, hey, I'm currently playing Civ. In the Civ chat, I'm currently playing Civ. This is happening. How would you do this? Or put a screenshot in here. Hey, it's turn 80. I'm behind. How would you fix this? Things like that. And we can help teach you as you're playing the games through the community. And then let's go over all of the Civilization 6 communities that I am a part of and learn from every day. It's important to keep doing this. We have the Civ 6 Challenge League. We have Peppermint Butler. We have, this is a Secret Santa thing. We have the Civ Shows community. We have Foibles community. We have GMX's community. We have Boesthius' community. We have 100 Games' community. We have the Game Mechanics community. That's like 7 or 8. Or 9 or 5, I don't actually count well. But that's a lot of communities that I'm a part of. And all of those communities have a Discord channel that you can go and chat about Civ and learn about Civ in. Additionally, go and find some YouTube channels for, like, you're already doing it because you're watching this, but there's so many other content creators out there who might be helping you in a different way, who might have content you're going to enjoy, and again, just be part of a Civilization community. Hopefully you'll be part of this one. I would love to have you, but maybe this isn't your vibe and you want to pop over somewhere else. I'm going to go over some of the other people I would recommend watching and going into their Discords and watching their YouTube videos. Let's start with Boesthius. I'm going to pop up on his. So Boesthius, his first video, Deity Vietnam Preserves make Civ 6 too easy on Deity. Double Deity in the title there. Very clickable, Bose. But you know you're going to learn something in that video that will help you win on a higher difficulty. And you can see if you just go to Bose's videos, he has so many videos, lots of meme faces, lots of red eyes, but so many good videos for you to watch so you can get better at Civ. It's the same with my subscriptions. Now, I'm not subscribed to as many YouTube channels as I am in Discord servers just because I don't actually have the time to watch a lot of YouTube videos, whereas I have the time to be in a lot of Discord servers, right? But you have Potato McWhiskey, you have The Civ Show, you have Foibles, you have a bunch of other people whose Discords I just mentioned who also make Civ videos for you to watch to help you get better at the game. Like I said, you can't cheat time, but you can help, or you can watch these videos to help you get there faster. In any case, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Just remember, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. I think it's important to do kind of broad strategies about how to go into the higher difficulties because they're important. And then next video, we'll kind of dial in and talk about some, more in-game specific strategies that you can use. So just keep in mind, this is part 1 of a part 2 or a 2-part series, really. If you enjoyed this video, there's lots of things you can do. There is a like and subscribe button all somewhere that you can click. Make sure you're being part of the community like we just talked about. There is also a Discord server and a Twitter and a Twitch that you can click in the description below. If you want to come watch us play Civ, we play Civ a lot, a couple of times a week. We also have an AI March Madness thing going on right now, and then hop in the Discord if you want to chat Civ and get better at the game that way. That is all in the description for you. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.